This has been quite possibly the craziest 48 hours for legacy iOS devices ever. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and we just witnessed the apocalypse. No, really, for like a day, and then Apple fixed everything because it turned out to be a bug or server maintenance or something to that extent. Naturally, they fixed things right before I was about to post a video on this subject, so hey, I'm not complaining. It would have made me look pretty stupid had I posted beforehand. Also, I've never owned glasses. I have no idea what you're talking about. I definitely did not lose them while riding a jet ski. Anyways, even though this is technically all over and all okay, I still want to talk about what happened today because it is absolutely insane, and for a little while it really looks like the death of legacy iOS devices forever. Seriously, while only temporary, Apple was basically just bricking their old 32-bit devices. Shout out to the r/legacy jailbreak subreddits. I love lurking over there, and that's where I found out about all this, and it was quite entertaining reading up as all this unfolded live. Basically, starting on July 8th, Apple slowly stopped signing firmware for legacy devices, but not the actual firmware or the IPSW itself, but rather they stopped signing the baseband firmware. The result of this was that any device that was reset or restored or stuck in recovery mode, whatever you would try to do, it would no longer be able to activate. And this is the exact same issue that like A9 devices have with iOS 9. So for example, years back, I bought this iPhone 6s Plus, brand new. I unboxed it and I had to replace its battery because it was boot looping. And I tried plugging it in here and it turns out it's boot looping again. The battery got discharged completely, which is ridiculous because I charged it less than a year ago. I don't understand how that could happen so quickly, but whatever. Anyway, I digress. Point is, when I was trying to set it up on iOS 9, because it was on its original version, it gets to the point where it needs to activate, where it needs to talk to Apple servers to make sure that the baseband can be signed, and then it always resulted in failure. This sucks. And it's really dumb because there's really no reason this shouldn't work. And it essentially forces users to have to update the phone if they want to use it. Like, I should be able to get into iOS 9 and, mess around a little bit, but no, if I want to use that phone, I have to update it, which of course, for me personally, removes any of the point of buying an iPhone 6s on iOS 9 to begin with. So this is obviously dumb, and I don't believe this has been fixed as far as I can tell, by the way, unfortunately. But in the very least, it's something that's like, it's easy to either understand or at least kind of let it go. Like, I don't know if this is an intentional thing Apple does, blocking A9 devices on iOS 9, but the actual amount of users that it affects is so small and basically just amounts to tech nerds like myself. Whether intentional or not, you could see how this might fall through the cracks and kind of let it go. Now, what's happened in the last days is not as excusable. Basically, all of the currently signed software, the latest version of iOS for these legacy devices, could not be activated whatsoever. So like iOS 9.3.6 on the iPhone 4S, for example, the latest version from Apple, if you installed that on a 4S, it just wouldn't work. Thus, ostensibly resulting in a completely bricked device, a fancy paperweight. For example, this iPhone 4S is dead, but it is running iOS 9.3.6. I don't know when I'll get this posted, but just a little earlier today, a few hours ago actually, had I reset this phone, I never would have been able to activate it again until Apple just fixed things. So I could now. But like, it's a brick device. It's ridiculous. It's a fancy paperweight. And thankfully that is no longer the case. But this issue was affecting, I believe, the iPhone 5, 5C, 4S, and 4, along with cellular models of the iPad 2, 3, and 4. Also the cellular iPad mini 1. Anything older, like the iPhone 3GS and so on, doesn't require a baseband signature, so those devices were fine. Wi-Fi only iPads were totally okay, as well as iPod Touches, since, they don't need the baseband to be signed. Now, when I recorded this originally this morning, I went on a pretty good rant about how insane this all is, because, it is, right? Especially if they had not fixed it. And, Apple can only be expected to support their older devices for so long, to an extent. If certain services like iMessage or FaceTime stop working, or you can no longer download apps or whatever, it sucks, but it's also sort of understandable. One example would be the PS3 store and the PS Vita store is shutting down, I think in a year. It sucks, but it's somewhat understandable, and I think you'll be able to download previously purchased video games, which is great. And ideally it would be that way on any iOS device too. But in any case, they're only going to maintain legacy devices for so long. But for products to be completely unusable, to the point that you can't even activate them anymore, you can't even get to the home screen and just swipe around, well, that would be unacceptable. It is another level of evil, and I highly doubt Apple would legally even be able to do that. I think it would probably set them up potentially for a whole lot of legal action. I saw people on Reddit and stuff talking about, class action lawsuits, stuff like that. And I'm not going to pretend I understand what exactly the legality of all this would be, but it definitely wasn't a good look for Apple. And surely you're not allowed to just brick old devices, because that's what they were doing, right? So there's no way that they could legally do that. I don't know. But of course, as it turns out, it was some sort of bug, or maybe someone in California bumped the keyboard. You know, I do wonder how this happens. I think server maintenance or maybe migrating servers or something like that. Something that would cause the servers to go down for like a day. That's the most likely reason, I think, for this to have happened. And thankfully, Apple has worked relatively quickly to restore baseband signing to all of these old devices. Now, if only they could let us more easily downgrade to older versions of iOS, instead of us having to find crazy workarounds and stuff to sometimes get that working, legacy iOS kit and all that stuff. It would be really awesome if Apple just gave us free reign to get to whatever iOS version we want to, but it's hard to imagine them ever doing that, at least intentionally, because of course there was the infamous downgrade party back in 2018 when Apple temporarily started signing a bunch of iOS versions just out of the blue. So you could downgrade like your iPhone 5 to iOS 6, your 5S to iOS 7, your 4S to iOS 5, etc. Sadly, I missed this at the time. I remember being very disappointed about that. I'm not sure if I slept through it, if it was overnight in my time zone, or if I just was busy doing something else that day. It was like maybe 12 hours before Apple shut it all down. It didn't last that long. This apocalypse today was probably the most significant event for legacy iOS devices since that downgrade party, honestly, back in 2018. And it's just too bad it was practically the exact opposite scenario this time around, not quite as fun. It is a little funny looking back at all the people panicking now, but I don't blame them. This totally seems like something Apple would just do and then never say anything about. Like, let's be real here. There's no way that Apple likes people jailbreaking their old devices, but it is a pretty harmless thing. I don't see why they would need to shut that down, feel the need to shut down like the legacy jailbreaking community. Why, right? It's relatively harmless. Piracy is not really an issue when it comes to stuff this old. So obviously this was not an intentional thing, or at least it was just temporary. So it's not a big deal, but it is worth talking about because holy smokes, this has been a roller coaster of the last 24 hours, 48 hours, man. My dog is intrigued. I don't think she quite understands what's going on. Yeah, I don't know. It's wild to me that this just happened, but obviously it's all good now. So, you know, no harm done, no harm, no foul. Hopefully they can fix some of the other issues we've been seeing with activation, whether it be A9 devices, or I believe there's a bunch of other devices that have had some issues. But I wasn't planning on making a video this week. I was traveling and I've just been busy, but I just really wanted to talk about this for obvious reasons. And thank you all so much for watching. If you have any thoughts on this at all, make sure to leave a comment down below. Curious to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe hit that like button, consider subscribing for more tech content. We do have a Discord server. If you want to drop by, say hi, great community over there. And yeah, I'm Josh from 91 Tech. This is Cola, and we will see you all next time.